individual, and I believe that at the end of the day, they will find this collective is not as tangible as they once thought. Let me give you an example of someone else who valued the collective over the individual, and I believe learned the same lesson. Herbert Hoover said his thing about a chicken in every pot and a car in every garage, and he was a shit politician. There were no chickens in any pots and no cars in any garages. Young Thug, in his song Stoner, says to me, "Your bitch is my dinner, she wet like a fish," and he too is going hungry tonight. No matter how good of a hook he's got, there will be no fish on any rods, and we'll just have to see if he gets my vote in the next election with promises like that. I'll tell you what Young Thug could do to get my vote, though, and that's to acknowledge the truth about the fact that this whole climate change mess is just bullshit. You see, it's not that climate change isn't happening, it's just that the movement against it is altogether selfish and misguided. Let me give you 2 facts about turtles to show you what I'm talking about. Number 1, sea turtles are larger than land turtles. There's a direct correlation between the amount of land versus water in the world and turtle sizes. Number 2 is that sea turtles currently inhabit everywhere in this oceanic habitat except for the polar regions. So these environmentalists, even though sea turtles exist at the peak of size and excellence in the turtle world, have decided that they are not allowed to expand into the polar regions, and in effect, they have determined that they are less valuable and deserve life less than humans. Sea turtles are this close to controlling 100% of 66.6% of the world. And these motherfuckers stand in their way for what? Their precious little human race, a few miles of ice. I'll tell you something else. Ice begins to melt as soon as it's put in water. So whether it deserved it or not, the polar ice cap had this coming all along. I'll tell you what else is a selfish and, frankly, depressing idea. Quite possibly the most depressing this side of the river nihilism. And that's parallel universes. Whoever came up with the idea of parallel universes must be the most ungrateful son or daughter of a bitch to have ever lived. See, we live in a virtually infinite universe with stars, galaxies, reaches that have never been probed. The only problem is science tells us the universe is technically not infinite. So as a result, this man or woman, I guess, goes outside the city to lament the universe's fall from infinity, and in deciding that the universe in its current state doesn't have the something more they desire, they determine that there must be other universes to fill the void they feel inside. If I could return to my discussion of politics, I would like to present my plan to make suicide missions in war mutually beneficial for all parties involved. Allow me to demonstrate if you'll just hear me out. The game of Jenga is incredibly parasitic. It poses as a team effort with everyone working together to keep this tower of blocks standing. But in reality, it's a vicious game with every man for himself, with one loser and all the winners feeding their miserable egos on the shame of said loser. This is the same outcome as when soldiers draw straws to determine who is to die across enemy lines in the next 24 hours. The only difference is, if you were to use Jenga as the impartial decider, you would ensure the person chosen for the mission actually wants to die. You see, no one wants to die for their country, but everyone wants to die after losing a game of Jenga. And bearing this in mind, we will make suicide missions mutually beneficial for all parties involved. Thank you.